Hey all, welcome back to Made It Out. Today I am here with a queer media icon, Tracy Gilchrist, who you all know for her interview with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande on their press junket for Wicked. She was holding space. She is Miss Holding Space. And today I am holding space for her. We're talking about her growing up, being gay in the 80s, what it was like being gay during the AIDS crisis, and how it's all kind of affected what her life is today. I'm just so excited. This is everything. I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, cheers. Thank you, ladies.
Today I'm holding space for you.
I'm holding space for you, all of you. I've been holding a lot of space lately.
I want to talk a little bit about that and like what this moment has been like and how it's kind of changed the course of your career. I mean, I feel like you've been doing the work for a really long time.
I have, yeah.
What does it feel like to be so established and have such a viral moment?
It's surreal. I really still can't wrap my head around it. Like at the Grammys, Taylor Swift held Cynthia Erivo's finger. Like that came from this interview. I'm like, on some level, maybe she doesn't know my name, but on some level, Taylor Swift knows who I am.
Yeah.
Like that is weird to me. Like she's one of the biggest, best known people on the planet. That's very strange to me. And like I said, I've been doing this for years. I did it. It began in 1999, writing movie reviews for this tiny gay rag out of Hartford. It was called Metroline Magazine. It's one that I used to pick up in the bars when I was first coming out, and started working for SheWired.com. I became the editor-in-chief there. So I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
I was the first feminism editor of The Advocate, and then the editor-in-chief of The Advocate for a while. And now I'm VP of editorial for Equal Pride, which owns Advocate and Out. So these legacy queer media brands. And, you know, like Advocate, just being a part of Advocate in and of itself, like this is a magazine where when I came out in the 80s, there was this bookstore, the Reader's Feast Cafe, which was a cafe and bookstore. And I was dating somebody who was like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, I don't want to go there. I'm not like all those people.
Wow.
Like I just was like, fine with the fact that I was into women, but I had this kind of internalized homophobia about what that looks like. You know, I was different. I was still different. I wasn't like the stereotype, because back then, you know, lesbians were really stereotyped as hippies and man-hating and, you know, all the Birkenstock wearing, you know, the whole thing. It was like the real stereotype. And I'm like, that's not me. I'm not that. I'm not queer. And now I'm in queer media. So anyway, but this place is somewhere where I used to go pick up The Advocate.
Yeah.
But even though it was a gay-owned bookstore and most of the books were, you know, queer literature and self-help types of things, I still would roll it up under my arm. Like I still didn't want people knowing that I was buying it. So there was a kind of an evolution there. I mean, I was young. I was 18, 19. But then I was in that place so much. I ate there so many times a week that they finally were like, do you want a job? So I started waiting tables there. And I guess that began my becoming a professional queer, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for so long. And then this moment happens where this video goes viral. And the thing was, it had been up for a while. It had like 500,000 views on Instagram, just that little clip of me teeing up a question for Cynthia and her reaction. And she does actually answer the question, but nobody paid attention to that. So it's just been so strange to have all this attention, but also I'm happy for it. I'm happy that I get to talk about queer media. I'm happy that I went to a conference recently, Creating Change, for the LGBTQ task force, and a lot of really young BIPOC, trans and non-binary folks were just really feeling a lot of love with that, and, wanted pictures and wanted to share what it meant to them.
Yeah.
So that's meaningful to me. And, I'm happy that after all these years, I get to kind of be this something for people. I don't really know what it is.
Well, you have done such a great job holding space for queer people for so long. And I want to know more about you and hold space for you and tell your story.
Okay.
So can we rewind? I want to know from the beginning, where are you from? What was your childhood like? Where just go back to the beginning.
Back to the beginning. I'm from Connecticut, central Connecticut. I grew up about 20 minutes west of Hartford, which is the capital. And, it's very hard. I mean, I kind of have to go there early. Like, my household was pretty violent. My sister is 9 years older than I am. She's my half sister, but we don't really, say that. She's just my sister, Pam. And my household was really full of violence. My parents fought so much. It was one of those things where, there would be shows, like it was a big deal back in like the 80s to have like an after school special or a movie about some kid who was like just devastated because their parents were getting divorced. And so when my parents were getting divorced, I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. But I don't want to go into too much detail, but I guess I'm here, so I'm just going to say it. So my mom, who, had her own stuff growing up with my grandmother, who was a single mother in like the 40s and 50s, was not the most attentive. My mother had issues and she was very violent. She was also really supportive of me with the arts. And, I played saxophone as a kid and, did theater. So very supportive of all that. And eventually when I came out, she was supportive of that, but just also was just an angry, angry human. And I also kind of understood that, like that she was not fully formed in some ways, like emotionally really stunted. But that was confusing. Yeah. It was super confusing. So I had a lot of issues, really, and a lot of depression. Yeah. And this was before I really understood that I was also queer, which I always thought I was okay with. Like I thought, I didn't have any problem with that, but that's part of the bigger story. At any rate, I joined the Navy Reserves at age 17. I had to have my parents sign because I just wanted to get out of Dodge. My friends were leaving for school and I wanted to go. So I joined the military, which is so not me. I had to sign a piece of paper saying that I'd never smoked marijuana or had a homosexual experience.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Right.
So it was like even worse.
When you were, I want to go back a little bit. When you were younger.
Yeah.
When did you start to figure out that you might be queer?
So I can look back and be like, oh, I had a crush on that actress or whatever. I had a couple. There was an actress, her name was Pamela Sue Martin. She played Nancy Drew in the Nancy Drew Mystery Hour. And then she went on to be Fallon in Dynasty, the original Dynasty. And I was pretty obsessed with her. Also Valerie Bertinelli, who was on the original One Day at a Time. I thought she was so cute. She was just so cute and bubbly. And Lindsay Wagner, who played the Bionic Woman. I was really obsessed with her. Yeah. So I look back and I'm like, oh, yeah, those were crushes. But I also had a crush on John Travolta because he was very pretty when he was young. He had long hair and full lips and yeah. So I did have a crush on John Travolta before I knew he was a Scientologist or what that was. Yeah, because that would have been that would be a deal breaker.
A you ghost, yes.
I mean, that's definitely a you ghost, or if you're a Republican.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, yeah. So I also went to Girl Scout camp for years. Started going to camp when I was 7. And so it was all women at this camp and very physical. Everybody hugged everyone. I I think I must have been about 11, and there was a CIT that I now know I had a crush on. But this was interesting because in this very physical camp, I guess I must have hugged her for too long, good night or something, and she called me queer. Yeah, and I was like,
which at the time, that was like,
it was a slur. It was a big slur. Yeah. So, in fact, it's the word that's been used against me the most.
wow.
Yeah. And now it's like, well, someone decided we were reclaiming it.
Right.
So here we are.
Now you're owning it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that happened. And I was still quite confused about that because I had dated boys or whatever, whatever you do with boys at that age. There were plenty of them. When I was 14, it was my last year at camp. There was this camper who, she was kind of like a rich bitch. She came for like the whole summer and had like great luggage and the whole thing. And there was like some animosity between us like in the beginning, but I can't remember how we kind of became close, but we did. And by the end of like my 2 weeks there, we were sleeping in the same cot.
Oh,
I mean, that was it until later after camp, we went camping with her parents and we would just like hold each other quite a bit. And we sent a lot of letters to one another. And eventually I used to go up to there was a Chinese restaurant on the main drag, like up the street from where I lived. I would go up there with rolls of quarters to the phone booth and stand in the parking lot and the phone booth and call her.
oh my God.
Yeah, I was 14. And so I called her one time and her mother picked up and told me I was not allowed to see her daughter anymore. Wow. That her daughter was going to some boarding school and didn't need this distraction and called me queer. And so
Wow.
I started my freshman year of high school depressed from a breakup, but I didn't have words for it.
Yeah.
So there was that. The first time I was really like, okay, I was also in love with my friend Karen for years and years. She was beautiful and she was like a coloratura soprano and like top of our class. Wow. And just like perfect. So I was in love with her. I used to walk her home every day from like 8th grade until, I don't know, junior year. I would go out of my way. I would get in so much trouble walking Karen home because she did not live anywhere near me. I was always in trouble. And, but it was my junior year. We were doing Godspell, for the spring musical. And there was this senior girl who I just thought was the coolest. She lived near our high school. And for some reason, I can't remember, but she offered to drive me home.
Okay.
I guess because we stayed late and I don't know. She was like, oh, I'll drive you home. So we walked over to her house and she drove me home. We ended up talking for a very long time. And that kept happening like every day now. She was driving me home from rehearsals. And then on the night of the performance, one of the final night of performance, which was a Saturday, this guy he was my mother's friend's son.
Okay.
From another town. Really good looking, like tall, very handsome, conventionally handsome guy came to see the show and wanted to hang out with me. But I was like, go away.
Sorry, you can't.
So I remember, she drove me home and we talked for a long time. And then we like hugged and it was like a brief, like really nothing, like you would kiss somebody on the lips to say goodbye. Like that was like kind of like people did that then. Like, except I was in my bed that night and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was completely consumed. So cut to the show is over. She's still giving me rides home from school now. And I blew off my job so she could give me a ride home. Like it was bad.
Oh my gosh. You were down bad.
I'm always like that. So anyway, we're in her car. It's like the middle of the afternoon and I'm overcome with this feeling like I have to say something. And it was like the hemming and hawing, like, I have to tell you something. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Oh no.
Just, it was like that back and forth. Like, just tell me. And so I finally said, I like you. And she said, I like you too. And I said, no, you don't understand. I like you. And she said, yeah, I like you too. And then we hugged goodbye and I went inside and I thought I was going to die. And I think it was maybe 2 days later, maybe the next day, my mom was at some event or I don't know where she was, but she was out. It was a Friday night. So this girl, she was a senior in high school, came over. We listened to music and talked, and like we had our hands like back here, and so our fingertips were grazing. And anyway, and then she went to leave, and we hugged for a very long time, and then ended up kissing in the foyer of my condo where I lived with my mother. And I just thought the bottom dropped out. I was just like, I had done plenty with boys. I couldn't wrap my head around whatever was happening. And the next day, I remember going for a long walk, hoping, like just willing her to drive by. Because I was like on the main drag of our town, just like willing her to drive by. I went to the movies with my mother to a matinee. Couldn't concentrate on the movie. I was just completely obsessed. So, we kind of saw each other for a while here and there. She was also dating. She had a boyfriend who was somebody that I knew. But so there was that. And then, we hooked up a few times, but it was always like very drunken.
Yeah.
And then I think she at the time had a lot of shame around it. I remember her saying something like, "This is just aesthetic appreciation." Wow. And I'm like, okay.
Never heard that one before.
But it's funny. Years, like I was besotted. She went off to college. I was just really besotted. But years later, we connected. It probably had to be 12 years later. And there was still like something there. Aww. And she was really open about it too. Like she was married to a man and had told him that she'd been in love with a woman once. And I was like, I don't know if I even realized that you were in love with me. But the thing was, after that night, was it after the rehearsals or at some point, it had to be after I told her that I liked her. And probably after we kissed, because she gave me in the hallway of school, which was kind of bold. She gave me her senior picture, a note, which I don't have anymore. I lost it at some point, and a copy of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, which is, he was gay and wrote very, homoerotic poetry. But the weird, crazy thing is, like, do you know the movie, The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love? Mm-mm. Anyway, part of the plot of that is like the one girl gives the other one a copy of Leaves of Grass. But that happened after this happened
romantic.
to me. Yeah.
You know what?
I'm super romantic.
Okay, but also like that's just a different time.
Yeah.
Like now we're like send me a nude. We're texting, It's like not as beautiful.
No, and I can't. This is why I've been single for so long. I will not do the apps. I can't do them. I
want to talk about all of this.
Them.
I want to get all into this, but I want to go back and I want to hear about, because this is like you are having queer love in a time where the messaging is like what tell me what was the messaging?
So first off, there wasn't a lot about lesbians.
Okay.
I do remember here's the weird thing, right? Like we went to an Episcopal church, like in the town over. My mother had this really fun friend who had lesbian friends.
Okay.
And so my mother had lesbian friends in her wider circle, right? We went camping with them sometimes. Like they had both been married and had kids from their marriages. So we would go camping with them sometimes. So they were kind of in my orbit. But then I remember my mom saying, like, if you're ever going to be a lesbian, you should be this kind of lesbian, like not that kind. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. But then she would also like, just maybe to try to be funny or whatever. Like when Billie Jean King was forced out of the closet, she had some not nice things to say.
Right.
So
kind of mixed messaging.
Very mixed messaging. I kind of came to understand like, oh, gay men were fine, but lesbians were like really like out of touch, you know, in a way, I think because of misogyny, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that still happens.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you don't have if you're not being the cool girl or trying to impress a guy, then, you know, except now we have Renee Rapp and Chappell Roan, and so they're making things cool.
Sure.
But we've always been cool. But yeah, the messaging was really kind of all over the place. And yeah, I don't know. I think I lost my train of thought.
Well, this was also during the AIDS crisis.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I don't remember when I first heard of HIV AIDS. Maybe around 1982, 83. I mean, it was happening. I think the first New York Times article was 1981, I believe.
Okay.
And so I just know that by the time I graduated from high school, we were having conversations. I remember conversations about toilet seats and doorknobs and what was safe and what wasn't. And at that time, Ronald Reagan's government, Ronald Reagan, refused to even mention HIV/AIDS. It was 6 years into this epidemic before he said the words. And his press secretary was mocking reporters from the New York Times for even asking questions about it. Like, it was just like, these queers basically deserve it. Or these drug addicts, right? Because it was, at the time, it was intravenous drug users, men who have sex with men, and Haitians. So that was very hard because we didn't know, for a while, we didn't really know how people got it. And there was a lot of conspiracy theory and rumor about that. The big thing was, I think there's like this kind of overarching idea that queer women don't have sex. Like, we sit around and paint each other's toenails and braid each other's hair because nobody, well, and it also goes to this bigger thing where women's healthcare is not, prioritized. Mm-hmm. Studies aren't built around women's healthcare. So you take that, and then you also take the fact that really people just didn't think lesbians had sex.
That is so crazy.
And there were no studies about it.
Sure.
So it was kind of like, oh, well, we're safe, except we didn't know.
Right.
But there was just no studies about it. So you kind of felt like the chosen ones in some way, but then also, I had a lot of probably survivor's guilt around it.
Wow.
I had good friends who lived in New York in the late 80s. And, one of the guys that I used to hang out with died, I think he died in 1991. So, there were people that I knew who died. Like I said, I worked at that gay bookstore cafe, and, there was the earliest drugs caused wasting, like where people's face would get very sallow, and, you just kind of knew. And then after a while, you wouldn't see them. You'd wait on them for years, and they never came back.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard time. And one thing that I have to weave through there is my mom's sister, my aunt Jean, who I loved very much. She was kind of my protector when I was younger. My sister to some degree, and then my aunt. And I would stay with my aunt, for weeks on vacation, and she took me to Mardi Gras a bunch of times, and but she was diagnosed with breast cancer. I think I might have been 18. She died when I was 19, which really dovetailed with the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
And my mother was a germaphobe, a clean freak, like never wore shoes in the house, vacuumed every day, just so on top of that, am losing my aunt and HIV/AIDS, I became like really bad hypochondriac and germaphobe. And I just thought I was going to die. Like I didn't think I was going to live. I never made plans because I didn't think I would live past. This is a really seems like a strange marker, right? I remember this being so clearly like, I love musical theater. My favorite musical for years was Evita. And so the movie was coming out in the mid 90s with Madonna. And I was excited to see this movie no matter what. And I just remember thinking, I hope I make it to see the movie. Oh. I hope I last long enough to see the movie. But I remember that in particular, but I did that with so much in my life. Like all these things that were just kind of bubbling up that I didn't take care of for a long time. You know, I thought I was okay, you know, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think growing up in that time and with these experiences affected your like coming out, but also just your understanding of your identity?
You know, it was very confusing. It was 2021. I don't know what happened. I called my mother to say hello, check in, and mostly we're good. But my stepfather likes Trump. They love me. They live in Florida. He likes Trump. And he loves my gay friends. And I can't explain to them that you can't do both. Anyway, so my mother and I would sometimes get into these tense conversations because I think she feels caught between her husband and her daughter. But occasionally she just decides to go for my jugular. And it starts with politics. And she went for it. It was September of 2021. And she went nuts on me. Started with something about Nancy Pelosi and then criticizing my job. And I've been, you know, wasting my time at my job. I'm too old now. No one else will hire me. I'm just like, called me a liar, like my father. Like, I was just like, what are you on about? And she ended up hanging up on me. And I texted her and I said, if you want to know why it's taken me so long to kind of get a handle on my life or, you know, where I'm going, you try. And this is the first time I ever said it to her. You try growing up gay in the 80s with a mother who was abusive. And she told me to seek help. And then, so we didn't talk for a while. And then we swept it under the rug because that's what New England mothers do. So, but in that text, I really kind of summed up, like, there was a convergence of things that made it really difficult for me to function properly. Like, just to do normal things. Like, I don't own a house. I'm just behind on a lot. It's taken me a long time to get to where I am, and I'm okay. I have a lot of grace about it now. I've learned to have grace about it. You know, but for years I had a lot of guilt and shame about not finishing college. I did that. I do have some shame about financial stuff, but things are turning a corner. I feel like everything I've done will eventually, get me to where I want to be. Do I wish I were, 20 years younger at that point? Yeah, but this is who I am, right? Everything I've done has gotten me to where I am and who I am now. So I have to just kind of be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a lot of people who probably had these same experiences or similar, especially just being queer in that time, who haven't made it to the point that you're at.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely incredible that you have, and that you're putting yourself out there. You speak about it. You advocate for people. And so it's just being who you are and at the age that you are, I think is such a beautiful and inspiring message for so many people out there. So I think there's a reason, that everything happened the way it did.
Yeah.
And you're a spokesperson for so many people, so I really,
thank you.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what else to be. Like I don't like my mother actually said in that fight that we had in October, she said, "Why do you have to fight for everybody? Why does it have to be you?" And I'm thinking like, what kind of privileged ass question is this? But this is also a woman who was a single mother in like the 60s and 70s for a while. Like she was kind of a role model for a while, but but I'm like, what kind of privileged ass question is that?
Yeah.
To not have to fight for a community. And the one time I went on like a coffee meetup with someone I met on an app who I was like not that into, but my friends were like, just go. You never know. And I'm like, so I met someone out and this person said, "Oh yeah, I'm not political. I can't be political." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a ghost."
You ghost. You see now you're gonna be on all your dates doing this. Like you ghost. Yeah. Well, I want to hear about that because I feel like that's, as you mentioned earlier, like all of this has kind of led to where you're at now. Yeah. And I can imagine that dating with people who have also grown up in these circumstances, that probably carries just a different or specific kind of baggage, So dating in this dating pool must be an interesting dating pool. And I want to hear about how do you date? Who do you date?
I don't. I haven't dated. My ex and I broke up in 2013. We're friends. I love her. She was younger and wild, like so wild. But that was 2013. I didn't date anyone until this June. I went on a couple dates with somebody.
Have you been putting yourself out there?
I like to meet people in person. I can't do the apps. So I do go to events and
that's where we met at an event.
Yes, at an event. Yeah. So I try to go to events. I try to put myself out there in that way, but I know that the apps are not for me. I tried them and I was just like, it just made me angry. I was like, I spend all day online for work. My whole life is like digital media.
Yeah.
I do not want to find love on an app.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not looking to just hook up.
Right.
I'm really not. I've done that. I'm a sapiosexual. So, I really need to be like intellectually stimulated.
Of course. Yeah.
And for anything really.
Yeah.
And then like, if I have that and then I hook up with somebody, then I'm kind of like a demisexual. So. And I'm like, oh, I'm so in love with them. Why can't I stop thinking about them? So no, I haven't really been, I'm putting myself out there in the way that I am, but yeah, I did have a little tryst recently, which was nice. I was out of town and, met somebody and we were talking and then it was like the entire party died around us and we were like standing there. It was nice.
I love that.
I figured we would just make out, but I was like, you know what? Donald Trump is in office and you know what? As I've said, queer sex is revolution. So fuck you, Donald Trump.
Queer sex is revolution. I love that. What do you think the biggest difference is dating now versus dating back then when you were younger?
Yeah. So now everything's on apps and it's very much out in the open. Whereas back then it was all very much under wraps. And so you're not just trying to figure out if someone's attracted to you or they're not trying to figure out if you're attracted to them. It's that, but it's also one of the reasons I love the movie Carol so much is that like that kind of parrying, holding your cards close to your vest and then opening up just enough and seeing where the openings are like to kind of push that narrative forward. And I know when it comes to attraction in general, people do that. Yeah. Trying to figure out if someone's into them or not. Well, except again, the apps can take that away because you're just swiping.
Right. It's like the sexiness is like, or, is kind of stripped.
The mystery is gone. I do like that mystery. And I don't want to be shoved back in the closet. I don't want anyone to be shoved back in the closet, but there is something about that I really do miss.
Yeah, you like romanticize
I
that.
romanticize it quite a bit. Yeah.
But I wonder how you can because do you feel like that's part of what has kept you blocked in the world of dating and love?
I think yes. Yes. Because I'm just like, ugh, it feels like work to try to date anybody. Also, I'm getting older. Like when I was younger, it was just, easier.
Yeah.
There were, and I think too, it's also probably how I feel about getting older, right? Like, but I feel very young, right? And I do tend to, the people who are attracted to me tend to be a little bit younger. And I'm not looking for younger people, but sometimes I am like self-conscious of like, do I seem out of touch or, but I think like this holding space moment has really taught me to just kind of own my power a little bit. Like I was at the Out 100 this year, and this trans-owned company, Sharp Suiting, gave me this beautiful white suit to wear, and then MAC Cosmetics did my my face and my makeup, and I had just gotten my hair done, so I felt really like my color done. Although I know that now the roots are a thing. But it was like super blonde, and I felt really like sharp, and I felt so good.
Yeah.
And really kind of stepped into my power in that moment and just enjoying it. So, I'm still learning like to own whatever it is about myself. And also like I went into the pandemic in the best shape of my life at age 52. And, and the pandemic was hard on everyone, and I'm not in that shape anymore. So I'm a little self-conscious about that, which, I know it's not great to talk about all the time, but I am self-conscious. I don't feel 100% where I want to be in my body. And so I know that's part of it, but I'm just still trying to learn, like I have strength and power outside of that, and to try to lean into, just owning who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to do that. I'm still learning. I'm getting there pretty well.
I think the world is really opening up to embrace that too. Like, I feel a shift where it's like the heroin chic skinny is not the standard anymore. And it's like there's beauty and wisdom in age. And like, I think, and like even the grown out roots and like there, clothing is changing where like, big baggy clothes and like, funkier shapes are in, because I think it's like kind of this rebellion against all of that that's been happening. And so I do think it's like, yes, own it. Like,
I'm trying to own it.
Much beauty. Like, there's so much beauty in the fact that you do have all of this wisdom to share. And like, I don't know. I think you're in a great moment. And I think that is attractive. You know what I mean? Like in the dating world, and like just standing in that, I think that will attract the right type of energy for you. So
I think so. I mean, I've certainly, I think, been flirted with a little bit more lately.
Okay. I have one more question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
It's, what are you working on in therapy? Or what are you working on self-development wise?
Yeah. So I'm maybe should be in therapy, but it's like dating. At the height of the pandemic, I really was like, you know what? I've been alone for so long. This is really like so bad for my psyche. And I started to try to figure out finding a therapist, but it was, I don't know, I was working too much. Anyway, I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
But I have really been working on, like I mentioned, just giving myself some grace, forgiving myself. Because as I said, I wasn't always a good person. That's the weird part. Like now I'm the holding space lady, right? And that comes with a responsibility. And I think back and I'm like, well, I wasn't always nice to everyone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I'm not a nice person. It was just, I could only do so much. I was fighting depression and, whatever I'd kind of tried to overcome from my childhood. And so now I'm really just trying to forgive myself, and be okay with where I am from day to day.
Yeah.
Like there are days when I'm like, oh my God, I owe like 7 stories and I don't know how I'm going to get this stuff written and I feel so bad. And it's just like, you know what? There's so much happening. There's so much happening. The news cycle is outrageous, and in my job, we are mostly queer people writing about these things that affect us day to day. And so I'm just trying to forgive myself for wherever I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very hard thing to do. I feel like, especially when you're like platformed very quickly, that kind of can haunt you a little bit. It's like, oh shit. Like I feel the same way sometimes. Like here I am speaking about like how we should all, love each other and treat each other well. And I know that there are people out there who I'm the villain in their story.
Sure.
And that sucks. And I was an asshole at points, and I was, a closeted gay living in Texas, and I hated myself and I hated the spot I was in. And that made me act in a lot of ways that were, not so great.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And Jesus, to anybody out there, like I am so sorry for those things, but I am trying to, be better, and we can only show up where we're at now. And, in the space that we're at, we're all just doing our best, so I totally get that.
I mean, all I can do is own it. Own that I wasn't always the person I would have ideally liked to have been, and try to move forward in a new way and give back as much as possible. Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of given back, but the personal relationships were where I was probably struggling the most. Yeah. So, I am sorry. Anybody that I ever maybe didn't treat well, if they wanted to call me and bitch at me, I would let them. Yeah. And I would apologize. Yeah. Yeah. So I sometimes I wish I had that chance. Yeah. But I can only just be here. Yeah. So here we are.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
And thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Can you tell people where to find you?
Yes. I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads as Tracy E. Gilchrist. So TRACY, middle initial E, GILCHRIST.
Perfect.
Yeah. I am on TikTok too, but I don't post as often.
We play a game. It's called You Haul or You Ghost.
Okay.
She's perfect in every way, but maybe just this one little quirk.
Okay.
And maybe this will help you kind of sort some things out for when you're out there dating.
Okay. We'll see.
All of her furniture is matching sets.
I'm okay with that.
That doesn't bother you?
I don't think so. But what's the furniture? Like, is it mid-century modern? Like, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so it depends on what kind of set.
Yes.
I once dated someone who had the entire airplane set. Like restoration hardware, airplane, everything was made out of airplane parts. And they just went in and said, I want the whole set. Desk, chair,
I don't
bed.
think that wouldn't be the worst thing for me. I'd be okay. I think I might be okay with that. Because that's also like a little mid-century to me.
Okay. I'm big on interiors. I'm kind of out on this one.
Okay. Yeah, that one I think I could live with that.
Okay, what about she wears glitter constantly. So there is glitter everywhere in the bed, in the bathroom, all over the clothes. Glitter, 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 glitter.
I don't think I'd be that mad at that. Does she wash her feet? Like, that's all I want. Like,
you're easy to please.
People who go outside barefoot and then don't wash them off, that's that I can't do. I'm a germaphobe. I'm a germaphobe.
Okay.
I don't know if that's you, but
that is kind of me. And Matilda's a little bit germophobic. Yeah. Like the other day I came home from the airport. I just came home from Disney World and I was so tired and I just got right into bed and she was like,
oh, yeah. I'd be like,
I'm like, I'm just tired. And she also told me that if I did this, that she would ghost me even today. Ooh. The glitter. She's not okay with the glitter. So
yeah, I mean, I guess, is it just like glitter eyeshadow or is it like glitter everywhere?
Glitter. Like we are glittering. We are shimmering and shining.
Yeah, I mean, look, is it like the first few months? Are we very much in love, or is it like after a while?
This is
like, because after a while, I might.
It's done. It's not cute anymore.
Yeah, it might not be as adorable. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going with ghost on that. You're ghosting that. I don't think you'd be okay with the glitter forever.
I told you I'm a Libra, so I'm weighing it out, right?
Okay, what about if you walk into her apartment?
Okay.
And she's a betta fish.
Oh, wait, what's a betta fish?
The betta fish is like that basic fish that you had when you were a kid.
Oh.
And it's like, they're really pretty. They're like red and blue.
Yeah, I don't think that would bother me. Here's what would bother me. Anybody who hates cats, I can't abide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fish you're okay with. What about if it's like a huge fish tank with a shit ton of fish?
I mean, it's not my thing, but...
But would you ghost for it?
No.
But if you go down the line, these now become your fish.
Is she taking care of them? Is she cleaning the tank?
She's cleaning the tank.
Okay. Yeah. No,
it doesn't bother you.
I'm fine. Yeah.
You know what's weirdly like a big fish tank with a lot of cool fish doesn't bother me. One betta fish, I'm kind of like,
that's poor lonely fish.
A little bit
why are you torturing that fish? That would give me pause. Like,
that you think
why
it
doesn't
needs
the
friends?
Fish have a friend?
Like that, yeah.
Yeah. That would. I might be like, what did that fish do to you? So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for playing.
Of course.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. As always, help us spread the gay agenda by writing an Apple review, rating us on Spotify, and sharing with everyone you've ever met. And if you haven't yet, join our subscription community, Made It In, for exclusive Made It Out media shows, content, and chat rooms at madeitout.supercast.com. Made It Out is produced by Matilda Jordan and worked on solely by lesbians.
I am holding space for the queer community and space for new love. Yay! Okay, that's very sweet. I might blush.